Think of the idea that the future, especially the rise of a controversial figure in world politics, could have been anticipated decades before it happened. Watch this video to discover the chilling predictions he made, particularly about a well-known politician, in the run-up to the important US presidential election of 2024. Perhaps you'll have a different view of predetermined destiny after reading these claims from the early 1900s. Edgar Cayce, whose name is associated with mysterious prophecies, made many predictions that have interested both researchers and ordinary people. His predictions about this political figure are astonishing in their accuracy and courage. More than mere guesses, they allow us to look at current events and guess what will happen in the future. The idea that this leader's fate was predetermined raises interesting questions about what this means for the country and for the rest of the world. From the moment these prophecies were formulated to the present day, we'll follow their trail and look for possible signs of their fulfillment. This investigation aims to challenge common beliefs and open up surprising new possibilities as we approach 2024, a year marked by much political turmoil. Cayce, whose nickname came from the trance-like states he sometimes entered, had insights into many areas of life, including health and historical events. His prediction that an important person would come to power in America and bring about great change is particularly compelling. If this overview of prophecy has interested you so far, please feel free to like it and subscribe to our channel for more interesting videos like this. With your help, we can continue to bring you these interesting conversations. Cayce set himself apart from others at an early age by reading many religious and ancient texts, which helped him to become a prophet. His extensive reading paved the way for his later work, which included detailed sketches of a leader who would rise in times of great chaos, challenge the status quo, and initiate great change. He took a long look at the type of leader he felt would not only challenge the way things were currently done, but also divide people's opinions, leading to great changes in society. If you compare them to the rise of Donald Trump, they have a lot in common. Cayce spoke of a leader who wasn't involved in politics at all, an outsider with a strong, controversial personality. That sounds a lot like Trump, whose rise from TV star and real estate mogul to president was against the grain. Cayce also saw problems and opportunities that would change the economy. It's a theme we see in Trump's handling of trade deals and economic reform. His approach was expected to have a significant effect on the economy of the entire country. Cayce also spoke of a leader who would oppose the established powers. This prediction is coming true with Trump's direct style and willingness to challenge established institutions. His arguments with politicians and the media have shown just how disruptive he is. To fully understand Trump, it's helpful to examine him in the light of biblical prophecy, which often speaks of leadership, chaos, and how God orchestrates events. For example, in the book of Daniel 2:21, it says that God is in charge of changing leaders, which corresponds to what Cayce said about how a great leader rises from chaos. This verse suggests that God controls how leaders act, which fits with the idea that Trump's sudden rise to power and the changes that followed could be part of a larger plan from God. One of the prophecies in the book of Revelation speaks of a strong leader facing incredible opposition. This person, known as the Beast, shouts defiance against the divine kingdoms while remaining in power for some time. Revelation 13:5-7 also says that this ruler rose up against sacred institutions, which is similar to the fiery discussions that were heard while this ruler was in charge. This type of description matches the way his reign sowed discord, with strong opposition and passionate support. Matthew's Gospel adds another layer by describing a period of war and natural disasters, synonymous with difficult change. Matthew 24:6-8 speaks of upheavals and tells people not to fear them. He emphasizes that these events are synonymous with great change, not an immediate end. The idea of the man of sin who acts provocatively and selfishly is introduced in 2 Thessalonians. This picture, often associated with the Antichrist, is reminiscent of some modern leaders known for their rudeness and self-centeredness. The similarities between biblical characters and modern political figures vary from person to person. These similarities make us reflect on leadership and its effects. Cayce's visions also had to do with spiritual renewal, a theme that recurs in Joel's prophecy, which speaks of a widespread spiritual awakening. Joel 2:28-29 speaks of a divine outpouring of spirit that will affect all peoples and provoke prophetic visions that will last for generations. Cayce's predictions that difficult times may bring greater awakening are a hopeful counterpart to this promise of illumination and connection. Isaiah 45:1-3 explains how Cyrus, a figurehead, was given the power to carry out divine commands. The Bible says God chose him to change the political landscape, overthrow established powers, and reveal hidden treasures. His victories and reforms were symbolic of these actions. This type of comparison puts people like a recent, influential leader in the same category as Cyrus, suggesting that, despite their controversial personalities, they might be able to help achieve greater goals. This interpretation includes the idea of elected leaders who are called upon to play key roles at important moments in history. Often, discussions of these modern figures recall the story of King David, a leader destined to become great despite his many flaws. Did you enjoy this video? If so, please like it, subscribe to receive more thought-provoking content, and consider using the Super Thank You feature to show how much more you appreciate it. It helps us in our work and keeps us going with these in-depth analyses. These examples show that prophecies can be interpreted in different ways depending on the time and place in which they are read. In these analyses, it is very important to be aware of the possibility of confirmation bias, which consists in seeing prophetic fulfillment where we want to see it. On the other hand, the New Testament has ideas about when prophets should speak that emphasize preparation rather than exact knowledge. Matthew 24:36 emphasizes the unpredictability of end-time events by encouraging people to know the signs without claiming to know for sure when they will occur. This biblical passage reminds us how important it is to be ready and pay attention to the signs, which is similar to how we can use the changing seasons to see when big changes are coming. If you don't feel joy or peace, it may mean you're not trusting God enough. An ever-tired spirit is often a sign of a faith that is not fully developed. A Christian's spiritual growth can be stunted by wanting to know too much about everything. It can be uncomfortable or disturbing to have too much information. Because I didn't know what to expect, I often felt impatient, frustrated, and disappointed on my journey. God's teachings told people to go with the flow of life and not feel compelled to unravel all the mysteries. Accepting the omniscient more and more made it easier for me to find answers, but it also showed me that not all problems can be solved. To show true faith, you have to let go of your worries. A deeper sense of peace of mind comes from living according to spiritual discernment and divine revelations instead of intellectual understanding. True faith can mean giving up on what you don't know, such as how and when God will act. Often, God's plan includes planned deadlines that are neither too early nor too late. These deadlines are designed to strengthen our faith and accelerate our own growth. In life, transformation happens slowly, so there are long periods of waiting. Many people want to change, but they don't want to be patient during periods of change. Waiting is an important part of growth, and it gives you the opportunity to choose between useful patience and harmful despair. Adopting a godly view of waiting makes you more patient and improves the experience as a whole. With practice, This skill enables you to obtain divine help in all areas, supporting one of the most important Christian virtues. Galatians 5:22 says that patience is a spiritual fruit that develops best when things are difficult. Instead of running away from problems, facing and overcoming them helps you become more patient, which leads to a whole and happy state, as James 1:4 says. Over time, spiritual relationships between people evolve, and each step helps them become more mature and stable. Even if the initial excitement fades, deeper bonds are formed, marked by continual change and growth. Experiences that test and confirm faith in God strengthen it. As we see God's constant faithfulness, we trust in the higher powers more and more. It takes time for people to trust you. While the ideal is to get answers to prayers immediately, this would actually stunt spiritual growth. So trust and time go hand in hand, and the divine calendar is a very important element of spiritual growth. Visions of future blessings give hope, even if it's not always clear when God's plan will come to fruition. This uncertainty helps us stay in tune with God's plans. Knowing how long the wait will last could make us give up, which is why spiritual journeys have hidden deadlines. Exodus 13:17-18 shows that the Israelites had to go through a long and difficult journey to reach the promised land. It was because they were not ready that God chose this path for them. This journey was both a test and a learning experience. It shows that it's not always easy to immediately understand God's timetable, but that God's provision and guidance are always there. When I think about my own life, it's been decades since I received a divine call in 1976, but the fruits of that calling have only recently become clear. Following God's instructions usually means doing what they say without fully understanding them. In Proverbs 16:9 and 20:24, it is said that although each of us plans our own path, it is God who protects and guides those steps, often in ways we cannot understand. Encounters with paths that don't make sense are meant to teach trust rather than reasoning, as trying to understand every divine motive can be frustrating and confusing. However, Proverbs 3:5-6 suggests a better way. Trusting fully in God's wisdom and following His instructions will lead you in the right direction, which goes against our natural desire to be independent. To become a Christian, we have to stop relying on ourselves and start trusting God to take care of us, as the psalmist says in Psalm 31:4-15. In 1 Peter 5:5, the grace granted to humility is compared to divine resistance against pride. Acknowledging our shortcomings and showing humility not only keeps us safe, but also brings us God's help. Admitting uncertainty is one thing, but choosing to trust opens the door to divine intervention, which aligns efforts with divine timing, which is perfectly in line with disposition rather than human assumptions. This principle, which is explained in 1 Peter 5:6, makes it clear that we do not choose when we will be exalted. Exaltation comes at God's appointed time. Ecclesiastes 3:1 supports this idea by saying that there is a place for everything that happens under the heavens. This verse emphasizes that each person's journey is unique. The advice not to be jealous of others when things go well for them is a reminder of the hard work needed to get things done. It encourages patience and perseverance during personal periods of growth and preparation. Seeing others succeed should motivate you and give you more faith that God is orchestrating the events of your life in a way that's perfect for you right now. Learning to align yourself with God's plans is like planting seeds that will eventually turn into personal victories. But giving in to fleeting worldly desires often gets in the way of spiritual growth. According to James 1:21, we should rid ourselves of moral impurities and accept the power of divine teachings to change us. These scriptures say that nourishing the mind, will and emotions with divine wisdom leads to profound changes within, such as shifting desires toward divine goals. When this happens, a person moves from a spiritual desert to a state of spiritual wholeness, which includes a close relationship with God, inner peace, and genuine joy. The time between planting and harvesting is one of patient waiting. Like seeds that germinate unseen, important inner growth occurs when no one is around to see it. In this hidden process, there are enduring issues that foster growth over time, preparing the ground for eventual emergence. This agricultural metaphor mirrors life itself. At first glance, actions based on obedience may not seem important, but deep down, big changes happen. Over time, these efforts lead to clear spiritual manifestations in line with deepest desires. As the fruiting season approaches, great changes occur. Breakthroughs in personal relationships, peace in families, and many blessings for everyone. During this time, divine interactions, guidance, and blessings are amplified, making each day more joyful and peaceful. If you're tired of waiting for the season of rewards and are beginning to doubt the divine calendar, it's important to understand how mysterious it is. Even if we don't like waiting, divine assurances help us remember that promises will be kept on time. Habakkuk 2:3 tells us that the blessings we expect will always come at the right time, even if they seem to take longer than expected. The hard part is not knowing when they will arrive, but making a firm decision to stick to the path that leads to their fulfillment. Putting more faith in God's providence makes life more pleasant and brings peace of mind when things are uncertain. John 8:31-32 tells us that Jesus wants us to follow his teachings so that we can truly be his disciples. He emphasizes that knowing the truth is the only way to be free. This truth, which shows the reality seen by God, is very important for understanding and going through life. Jesus, who is truth itself, John 1:14-17, and the Holy Spirit, who is the way to all truths, John 16:13, light the way for believers and ensure that they don't run into problems along the way, Proverbs 4:12. Knowing that God is omniscient, as Psalm 139:2 shows, gives us the assurance that he knows everything we do. This makes us more willing to be courageous and fearless in our divine missions. This means taking faith-based risks, trying new things, and following the dreams that divine inspiration gives us. There's a lot of confusion about past decisions when people are hesitant or have doubts. During times of uncertainty, the best way to get through them is to take a moment to connect deeply with our spiritual instincts instead of letting fleeting thoughts take over. This inner clarity doesn't always come immediately, but listening to divine whispers before moving forward ensures that we're in tune with the higher will. After making a choice, doubts may arise, but delaying things only makes them more uncomfortable. In Matthew 6:25-34, Jesus tells us to live each day to the full without worrying. This can help us deal with the problems we face every day, use divine strategies, and rethink the way we think. As the psalmist does in Psalm 77:11, remembering the good things God has done can help your faith when you're feeling anxious. That's because God has been faithful in the past. The Bible is full of wise words and instructions that can help you manage your life, grow spiritually, and make moral decisions. It tells believers to think about what they can do rather than what they can't, relying on God's power to accomplish great things. This shift in perspective is illustrated by the story of Gideon in Judges. Even though the Midianites were oppressing Israel, God had a larger plan that would succeed. If you think this discussion is helpful, please like, subscribe, and use the Super Thanks button to help us continue to produce content that educates and motivates people. Your help is very important for us to be able to give you these ideas. In the past, when the Israelites were dominated, they begged God to help them fight their oppressors. While these people were begging, Gideon, working in secret in a wine press, had a vision from God that would change his destiny and that of his people. God called him a mighty warrior, Judges 6:12. But at first, he didn't believe he could be a leader because he belonged to the weaker Manasseh clan and didn't think he was important enough. But the promise of God's presence and victory, Judges 6:16, reassured him, and he answered the call. Gideon had an army of 32,000 men, but he did what God told him to do and reduced his forces to just 300 men. This shows how much he trusted in God's strength. This considerable reduction in force resulted in a miraculous victory over 135,000 Midianites. It shows that when you have faith, numbers or material disadvantages don't matter. This video has meanings beyond its biblical roots. It shows broader ideas of prophecy and divine planning found in Edgar Cayce's visions and his study of leadership in history. Cayce's emphasis on the awakening of consciousness and interconnected events makes us reflect on the spiritual aspects of leadership and social change. The major changes that have occurred during Donald Trump's presidency are similar to the themes in prophetic writings about important leaders changing whole groups. It's similar to the problems Gideon faced and solved. By examining these prophecies, we learn more about the complexity of leadership, destiny, and the lasting impact of prophetic figures. This kind of investigation makes us think about what might happen and gives us a broader vision of how things might unfold in the run-up to the 2024 US presidential election. Examining Cayce's predictions in the light of historical and biblical texts helps us better understand the forces at play as we continue to watch the political scene unfold. Thank you, Cayce.